All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to talk about Jaron Ennis, the #1 contender for the IBF, and his team pushing for an Errol Spence Jr. Terence Crawford deadline. So if they're going to fight, make the fight. If not, Spence fights your IBF mandatory. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to be in the 147-pound division, my favorite division in boxing, obviously, and talking about something that has come out of the camp of one of the best fighters in the division, probably the third best fighter in all of the division, at the least, I should say, at the least, the third best fighter in the division, and that is Jaron Boots Ennis out of the great city of Philadelphia. Talking about the Errol Spence Jr. Terence Crawford fight and pretty much saying what I am believing to be the case right about now. Ish or get off the pot. Let's keep it pushing. Now, before I get into that, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you are a longtime subscriber and supporter to the channel, welcome back. Thank you so much for your continued support of the channel. It's greatly appreciated in the live streams and in the videos that we do. Make sure you hit that like button and that share button if you wouldn't mind. If you're new to the channel, welcome to the channel. Please accept my invitation to hit that subscribe button so you can participate in the boxing conversations that we have, which we have on a daily basis in the live stream format where we talk about pretty much anything in boxing, old fights, new fights, little weight classes, big weight classes. We talk about it all. And in the videos where we have a little bit more specific topics that we talk about, but I think you'll enjoy the conversation. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you can participate. All right, so let's get into this. As we all know, Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford have been in a negotiation for a fight for the undisputed title, undisputed welterweight championship, where they're fighting for Errol Spence Jr.'s WBA, WBC, and IBF belt, and Terence Crawford's WBO belt. Now, we are all waiting to see the outcome of that fight and what it will be. And every time somebody makes an announcement about the fight, whether it be, a mainstream media outlet like Dan Rayfield, I don't know, Dan Rayfield's not a mainstream media outlet anymore, but he's been a mainstream boxing writer on the boxing beat for a very long time. Or you get Mike Coppinger, who's at ESPN, saying that this fight is about to get done. No matter who has said what, or YouTube channels or Twitter channels or whatever, always comes out to, no, it's not happening yet. Wait. So Jaron Ennis's team is apparently getting tired of waiting and is saying and asking the question, and definitely go check out the video. It's on YSM Sports Media. Always like to give those guys a big plug because they're actually always giving interviews from fighters in the Philadelphia gym, specifically the one that Bozy Ennis and Jaron Ennis fight out of. Also, Steve, God, man, please don't mess this man's name up in the middle of the video. The 122-pound Stevie Fulton Jr. See, I messed around till I got it right because I always want to say this other fighter that is really working with Terence Crawford, so I mess up their name. It's both Steves in there, but Stevie Fulton Jr. Or Stephen Fulton Jr. Cool boy Steph out of that gym. Now, what the question was look, when are they going to set a deadline for this fight with Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford? And should the IBF go ahead and set that date for them so that they can have that date and that fight mandated between Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford, right? I mean, between Errol Spence Jr. and Jaron Ennis. Because if Jaron Ennis is at this moment the mandatory for Errol Spence Jr. for the IBF, and I do believe that the IBF is the mandatory that he has not defended in, I think, has it been 3 years? Yeah, the Carlos Ocampo fight, who was for the IBF mandatory. After that, I think you might have had the Lamont Peterson fight. After that, you might have had, or maybe Lamont Peterson was right before the Carlos Ocampo fight. But at the very least, you've had the Sean Porter fight take place, and then a year go by, or a little more than a year go by, then Danny Garcia for the WBC, and then the unification for the WBA. So of the belts that that Errol Spence Jr. currently has, the IBF is the one that that may very well come first, even though there is most definitely the mandatory that he has with Stanionis for the WBA, which was the mandatory of that was ordered for Yordenis Ugas before Errol Spence Jr. Beat Yordenis Ugas. So the question of that, which mandatory would come first, I think would really have to be worked out between the sanctioning bodies. It may be Stanionis, it may be Jaron Ennis, but whatever the case is, I'm 100% in agreement with what their camp is saying, or the question that they're asking out of that gym, which is, well, one of you guys, is it time for these guys to say, all right, man, when are you going to make up your mind about this fight? If you're not going to make up the fight and get this fight agreed to, then we're going to move on and we're going to order Errol Spence Jr. to fight this mandatory, right? Now, that wouldn't be the case for the WBO, I don't believe, because the mandatory for them doesn't come up for until November. But I'm all aboard with it, because really, as much as I would love a Terence Crawford Errol Spence Jr. fight, I would not like it so much for this to be the scenario that we wait, or we keep waiting and waiting and waiting, and then the fight doesn't happen. And when that fight doesn't happen, there's not something else in place where I can see Errol Spence Jr. in a good fight. Now, I really believe that if Errol doesn't get that fight, of course, there is the likelihood that Errol will say, okay, well, I didn't get the Terence Crawford fight. I'm vacating these belts and I'm going up to 154. He has hinted that he may want to do that. So that is, definitely, a chance that could take place. And if he does that, I'm okay with that too. And then if you wind up in a situation where Jaron Ennis has to fight a mandatory, the fights, is ordered, their next fight is ordered for the IBF belt, and Stanionis has to fight somebody like Keith Thurman for the WBA belt, whatever the case is, man, boxing is just so dry this year that I just want them to make up their mind. And also, I really believe that if the IBF or somebody else did put a deadline on it, that you would probably wind up having that negotiation go a little bit quicker on Terence Crawford's part, because Terence Crawford, and this is pretty much what everybody has alluded to in court, including Terence Crawford, is that he's the guy that is trying to work and get certain circumstances right for him in that fight. But if the IBF puts a deadline on it and says, okay, you guys have been negotiating for the last 4 months, the fight with Errol Spence and Yordenis Ugas took place in April. It's now the second week of August, a full 4 months. If you guys haven't made up your mind about it by now, okay, here, you guys got another 3 weeks to get this done, or we're going to order the mandatory because we want this fight to take place for the belt to defend the mandatory within the year. I'd be 100% for that, and would actually love it if the IBF did it, because if they did it, again, I think it would actually push these guys through to getting it done, right? I'm not saying now just don't allow them to finish the negotiation, but just, hey, man, when do you think this negotiation is going to be done by? We've got about another 3 weeks that we're going to be okay with it. Now, this is not the first time that's happened. It's actually happened with Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder, where Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn, according from my understanding, asked the WBA to order the fight with Alexander Povetkin and set a deadline on how long they had to go through the negotiations. The WBA set a 24-hour deadline. Boom, that 24-hour deadline was up. Then Anthony Joshua goes on to fight Povetkin, right? So it's not out of question for those guys to do it. And the answer to that question that they asked is, yeah, man, absolutely, positively, I would love to see that take place, because I just want to get around and see some good fights, man. You know what I mean? Like, if it's not going to happen, don't wait forever and a day to disappoint me. That's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.